Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another special video. And today I'm super excited to have with me Evolutionary Astrologer Bryan Colter. Hi Bryan.
Hello, glad to be here.
Yeah, welcome. And I'm super excited for our topic of discussion today, which is the war on perception and the transiting lunar nodes in the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius, which I know is something that you've been talking a lot about on your own channel. And so if you guys aren't already subscribed to Bryan's channel, I'm going to put a link down in the description below because I highly recommend that you do. But today we're going to cover that topic really in depth. And before we get into it, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about evolutionary astrology so our audience can become familiar with the style of astrology that you do, because it's very different from, or at least somewhat different from what I personally do. So just tell us a little bit about your background with evolutionary astrology and what it actually is and how it differs from modern Western astrology.
Of course, yeah, happy to. And there's actually, for starters, there's actually two different schools of evolutionary astrology. There's the school of Jeffrey Wolf Green, and then there's the school of Stephen Forrest. I studied with Stephen Forrest, and really they both the schools, they were created independent of each other around the same time. Yeah, by chance. I guess they kind of tapped into the same morphogenic field or whatever, and was pulling through information. And of course, they got together back in the 80s and I guess tried to arm wrestle for the name, so to speak, not really, but just like, what's going on here? We have the same name.
Oh, weird.
And what they found was the core principles, the philosophy at the foundation to evolutionary astrology were the same for the both schools. And it presupposes that ultimately the purpose of life for us being here is to do just that, to evolve, to learn, to grow, to expand our consciousness. And I think what it has in common with some of the more conventional forms of astrology is, sure, it's pretty good at describing your personality traits. It has elements of psychological, more modern astrology, where we understand the birth chart, which is the blueprint of the psyche, as I call it. It's like, what's your inner psychology driving some of those traits into manifestation? And we can highlight your gifts, your passions, your destiny. But what I'm most keen to understand through this perspective is, what are your pathways of evolution? It's like, oh, great, you're a Leo. Wonderful, What can you do to be an even better Leo? Because I believe in this realm of duality. We exist between the juxtaposition of light and dark. So I read the symbols that way too. It's like, what's high in Leo? Where does Leo suck? So where, if you're a Leo with your own conscious awareness, you can kind of pinpoint where you feel you are on that scale. And this is where we can transcend just the descriptive form of astrology into prescriptive. It's like, okay, this is how I can be a better Leo. This is the evolutionary intention of what it means to be a Leo. And of course, your moon sign and rising and all the other planets will color that in a specific way. But if I had to boil it down to something like one sentence, it's a tool used for personal growth and evolution. And another component or wrinkle of it, which sets it apart as well, is how we read the nodes. Mm-hmm. And I know we're talking about the nodes, a lot in this session. So pointed out here, the south node of the moon, the north node of the moon, the way we read it is south node is related to past life. So we use the reincarnational model. Mm-hmm. North node is our karmic medicine. What's the set of experiences that we really want to have in this life? What's the energy we're attempting to fold into our consciousness in this life in order to heal, grow, and move on from the karmic past, which we were really defined by in the last life, or really last set of lives. So it really paints a picture for our ongoing lesson plan and gives us some key insights to what are the questions on the exam that we're taking in this life. Because when we're born, we forget what the heck we're supposed to learn, because we pass through the veil of amnesia and we forget where we came from. And of course, that's by design. If we knew all the answers to the test going in, there wouldn't be much opportunity for growth. It'd be too easy. So that's kind of looking at the chart behind the chart. It's like, okay, I have this birth chart, but why? I always try to dig a little bit deeper with that question of why. Where did you come from to get to this point of evolution?
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. And there are a lot of similarities and overlaps between just, normal or not even traditional, but like modern psychological Western astrology and evolutionary astrology. And I would say a lot of modern astrologers look at the nodes in a similar way from an evolutionary standpoint.
Hmm.
Mostly I look at it that way because it's the best information I've come across and the most useful on the nodes. It's not just you go and, focus on your north node and obsess over it and just completely ignore the south node, which is something
Yeah.
that's been, I think, an issue with modern Western interpretation of the nodes for quite some time. There's more to
Hmm.
it than that. And so I
Totally.
love your approach, and I'm super excited to talk about the transiting nodes too. And this war on perception that I think is very obvious, especially to our viewers here that are going to be watching this video, that
Hmm.
we're engaged, or I wouldn't say we're engaged necessarily actively in it as sort of the recipients of this. I mean, maybe a little bit. I don't know what you would say about that, but definitely there is like a war on perception going on here, where what we're being told is not exactly what is true and what is real, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. And yeah, that's what I'm calling it, the war on perception.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is a couple of different things. I mean, that's kind of the punchline. That's where we're going. That's the challenge. That's the evolutionary intention.
Mm-hmm.
But again, why? It's like what's going on in terms of the astrological events, and it is tied into the transiting nodes.
Yeah.
And the transiting nodes represent, first of all, the babies coming in to planet Earth, the School of Hard Knocks, right now over this year and a half, from June 5th, 2020 to late December 2021. The nodes will be in Sagittarius and Gemini, that polarity there. So it'll say a lot about the karmic conditioning of those babies coming in on one level. I'm not going to say too much about that. But on the other level, it's talking about our collective karma.
Mm-hmm.
What are we learning on a collective level right now? So the polarity of Sagittarius and Gemini is what we're working with now. And previously it was Capricorn and Cancer. And of
Yes.
course, we're still dealing with Capricorn. It's been, gosh, 2019, all of 2020 has been, the 1-2 punch here of heavy Capricorn energy. As a lot of your audience probably knows through watching your videos, Saturn's been in Capricorn. It dipped its toes in Aquarius the last couple of months, but it's returned back to its own sign. Actually, they're both its own sign. But you also have Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn. And the nodes have left that axis of Capricorn and Cancer, but we're still feeling Capricorn heavily. And it's important to also say a couple notes about that too, and then I'll get to the Sagittarius piece. In terms of what you said about the nodes, it's not like we're trying to get away from the south node and reach the north node. It's important to still understand the negative side of the symbolism of the south node. Okay, that's what we're trying to launch off of to take our karmic medicine, the north node. The dark side of Capricorn was control,
Yes.
the dark side of the patriarchy, the elite, tightening their grip on humanity. That's the way I read it. And really, 2019, especially 2020, I'm calling this year the Great Awakening.
Oh, yeah.
Because as these power structures continue to tighten their grip, everything's accelerating, okay, tremendously now. Something's got to give, and I think we're headed into, this is much more big picture here, but we're headed firmly into the age of Aquarius. I believe that. I think we've been heading that way since the early 1900s, since the first flight. We went from the Kitty Hawk to the moon in 66 years. So technology has really taken off, but now once Saturn goes into Aquarius, once Pluto goes into Aquarius, we'll be entering this Aquarian age, which is more about freedom. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying it for many years, it's got to get worse before it gets better.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now we're in the period of the worst, and
Definitely the worst.
Yeah. Yes. And in terms of, now we've transitioned into Sagittarius, South Node, Gemini, North Node. So we want to contemplate the dark side of Sagittarius that we're trying to grow beyond towards high-end Gemini. And just kind of understanding, because they're opposite sides of the same coin. Okay, it's like we sit the great god Gemini next to the great god Sagittarius, and let's say they work for the newspaper. Okay, what roles would they have within the newspaper? Well, Gemini would write the news. It's like, tell me the truth, give me just the facts, ma'am. You know, has that more academic, analytical approach because it's on the mental plane. It's an air sign. Sagittarius would write the editorials. You know, not news, but Yahoo News. It's like facts with interpretation too. What's going on here? What does this all mean? Interpretive questions. Sagittarius, the philosopher instinct, that's one of the archetypes associated with Sag, is always trying to ask the big questions in life. What does it all mean? But where can that turn dark?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know where I'm going with this. It's like we tweak the philosopher archetype and we say preacher. You know, it is a sign linked to religion. And when we think of religion, we think of, you know, our belief in God, for example. But I want to point out we can be religious about many things.
Yes.
You know, it's just fixed set of ideologies and belief systems. You know, we can cynicism, that's dogma, can be. Materialism, there's people that have made a god out of money. Atheism, science even, you can be dogmatic about that. Sure, Catholicism and religion too. So the dark side of Sagittarius is a fixed set of ideologies and belief systems. Okay. And that's what we're trying to get beyond.
Yeah.
Here everybody is very fervently in a fiery way. Sagittarius is a fire sign, telling their truth, what they believe reality to be.
Yes.
But the thing is we're incredibly flawed human beings. You know, we can't possibly know what reality is. It's sure is fun to think about. You know, I'm a Sagittarius. I love to talk about it, right? But we can't possibly know.
Yeah.
Whenever we try to conceptualize God or God consciousness, it turns from God to fantasy. Yeah. So we're trying to break up those patterns of belief. We're kind of like skipping records, a lot of us. Not everybody, obviously, some illustrate this more than others, but we're talking about general themes here collectively and globally. Yeah. We're trying to strive for Gemini, the sign of communication, the sign of data, the sign of truth, the sign of data in, data out, information, sign of communication. Now, underlying communication is thought. Underlying thought is perception. In my opinion, the core meaning of Gemini is the sign of perception. And when looking at the evolutionary intention, working with the nodes, our collective karma, is to simply perceive reality more clearly. And a good sort of Geminian mantra is, whatever I believe reality to be, it's not quite that, you know? Yeah. I allow my perception to be stretched, to be open. If you're a Buddhist, seek out a scientist. If you're a scientist, seek out a New Ager, you know, seek out people unlike your belief system to have open-ended conversation. No mind wars or verbal jousting here, although once we get to the war piece, we'll understand there's a whole lot of that going on. Just look around, but this astrology supports it. Not to adopt these other people's belief system, but just as like, what do you believe truth to be? And everybody's truth has morsels of truth in it, you know? So parsing that out and not to adopt theirs, but to allow yours to have some breathing room, yeah, to perceive reality more clearly. And I think that this year is just very tense. I mean, gosh, every astrologer on the planet is talking about this year. A lot of them are saying, I told you so, you know, because we knew 2020 was going to be heavy.
Yeah. And
it's already been heavy, of course. We had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the beginning of the year, right when the COVID started to spread. We've been experiencing that. We've been experiencing the control from the powerful through that experience, forcing us to wear masks. We've been feeling a lot of solitude, you know. Capricorn is the sign of the hermit. And now we're entering into this much more fiery last half of the year. The nodes have changed signs to Sagittarius, the fire sign, with Gemini, the air sign, a kinetic blast of energy, where it will continue to be all the way through 2021. But really the next 6 months, the last half of 2020, is where it's going to be most tense, most charged. And drum roll, please, you know, that's because Mars is in its own sign of Aries. And whenever a planet's in its own sign, it is on steroids.
Oh, yeah.
And Mars, the warrior, doesn't need steroids. He's already juiced, you know? And Mars spends about, 6 or 8 weeks in a sign on average? Well, it's going to be in this sign, its own sign, for about 6 months. Not only that, it's just entered into a tight square, which is a hard angle. Many astrologers will say it's a bad aspect. Okay? And it can certainly feel that way with Mars and Saturn, because there is a moderate Mars-Saturn square, and Pluto, and Jupiter.
Yeah, not to mention Pluto.
yeah, don't forget about Pluto. Yeah. And if you do, you'll feel the pain. You know? So anyhow, yeah, squares aren't bad, they're hard, especially with these cocktail of planets that we're working with here. Mars, the war god, known as one of the malefic planets, deals with conflict, okay, deals with war. There's some beautiful things about Mars too, which I'll highlight, of course. We always want to look at the light side. But through the square, the dark side becomes a little bit more obvious, let's say, especially when it's in a square to Saturn, the other malefic, the greater malefic, in its own sign too. And then Pluto, the planet of extremity. Yeah. Pluto is the planet of wounding. So everybody's wounds around Mars, which is to say anger, are really coming to the surface and highlighting the extreme ends of dark side Mars and high end Mars. And even Jupiter too has this an expansive quality to it. So we're in the season of the warrior.
Absolutely.
And a couple of videos ago, I called it, we've entered the season of the protector, because what do warriors do? They protect the weak and those who can't defend themselves. So we're entering into a tense time. And of course, high in Mars, it's like, okay, what's the evolutionary intention here? Well, to become more warrior-like, to become braver, more courageous, develop our personal power, our martial qualities, fiery energy. Now, for those of you who are fiery out there, maybe you don't need a little more chili powder in your stew. And you probably want to reel it back a little bit, you know, and be aware of being self-righteous. You always got to take into consideration, you know, the individual style.
That's one of the things too, going back to South Node and Sagittarius. Like you hit on so many things that I've been discussing for quite some time, but Sagittarius can be a very self-righteous sign. No offense to you or other Sagittarians out there. My husband's a double Sag. You know, he gets it.
Good for him.
Yeah. But that is one of the shadow sides of Sagittarius. It can be very self-righteous. You throw some Mars into the mix, some strong Mars in the collective, and that is aggressively self-righteous energy. You add that Gemini into the mix, and I talked about this with another astrologer named Robert Phoenix, who I'll be doing another video with soon. About that North Node in Gemini. And one of the things we talked about was like double speak and new speak, like 1984 types of propaganda being pushed out in the media. The combination of those energies is absolutely dangerous on a societal level. Absolutely. And it almost seems as if the what's going on in the collective in the media is playing into those energies like intentionally and just perfectly to create quite a ruckus on a societal level.
Absolutely. And we circle back to the dark side of Capricorn, since this still is the overarching year of the Capricorn. The powerful who have created sort of an egoic attachment to their power. Not everybody with a lot of money, obviously, but we're talking about the top 1% of the 1% here. They are leveraging they've used it for decades, media, to control our perception of reality. And that's what I mean by war of perception. So we've entered this phase of the warrior, coupled with the nodes of the moon. Okay? And the best way, one of their, their most dangerous tools, I guess, is if you control the perception of the public, you control everybody.
Yeah.
And we've been effectively brainwashed for a long time. And that's what we're going beyond. And it's becoming more and more obvious. And this energy is ramping it up to a fever pitch. And then what they do is they pit one side against another. Mm-hmm. Red, blue, black, white, rich, poor, whatever it is, polarity, so that we fight ourselves amongst each other and be distracted instead of waking up and understanding what's really going on. Now, through this time of solitude, a lot of us have had a lot of time on our hands, and have poked around on the internet and have learned, because we're not so distracted by the busyness of just trying to carve out an existence, day in and day out. And this, I said a phrase on one of my videos recently, which admittingly was too extreme, but I wanted to paint a picture here. It's like we're headed towards freedom, towards the Aquarius energy, but yet we supposedly have been having freedom already. But to me, it was slavery masked as freedom.
Yes.
It wasn't literal slavery, obviously.
Yeah.
But we had a bigger jail cell with a much better view and a nice window,
yes.
With fresh air, and could even go in the pasture from time to time, what. So what's going to happen on this war of perception? People's fervent ideologies are getting catapulted, warlike, against the polarity, the other team, okay? And people are just fighting endlessly, probably leading to some destruction on a lot of levels. Yeah. Not predicting war here, okay? It's mainly a war of ideas, ultimately a war on perception. We're fighting for our freedom of perception to see reality more clearly. And through the synchronistic wave, really supporting this evolutionary intention, what I believe is going to continue to happen, it's already been happening, but I think it's going to accelerate, especially over the next 6 months, but it'll continue into 2021, is, here's a word connected to war, bombs, okay? Truth bombs.
Which we're already getting a lot of those.
We're already getting a lot of truth bombs, and I expect that to continue, because through the law of synchronicity, we're trying to be shown the higher road, Gemini, and some people are so fixed in their Sagittarian belief systems that it's really going to take a big truth bomb that's going to rattle them out of that. Mm-hmm. And some people will refuse to be rattled out of that. And some people will rattle out of that, and they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe my eyes.
Yeah.
And it's a tough pill to swallow. But truth bombs, I like that word. I like disclosure, maybe on some level, truth coming to light, data in Gemini, so that we can perceive reality more clearly.
Absolutely. And combine that with Mars squaring Pluto, which in my perception, Pluto is a planet that really reveals deep truths that are very hard to swallow and that people can be very resistant to. And we're already seeing truth bombs. I mean, look what's coming out around sex trafficking and pedophilia. These are things people don't want to see. They don't want them to be true. And it's being blown up out into the open right now in a way where if you're ignoring it, it's intentional because it's there, right? So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I like that. So it's like the bomb aspect is Mars, not that it's literal bombs necessarily. And then the truth aspect, Pluto conjunct Jupiter, right? It's like expanding on the truth. Yeah.
And Pluto, I talked about it, it's called the god of hell, archetypally. The lord of the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole pedophilia thing is like the underworld, you know?
Absolutely.
And again, it's highlighting the extreme dark. Okay.
Extreme dark, like the
Extreme
most
dark.
extreme dark.
Yeah. Yeah. Truth coming to light so we can open our eyes, you know? And yeah, it's a tense energy the
Mm,
next 6 months. But again, what we're trying to cultivate is more bravery,
yeah.
more courageous. We need to become stronger
Mhm.
collectively because we're going to see some pretty wild stuff. And again, if you have a fiery personality, fiery chart, reel it back a little bit. Recognize that Mars is flowing, through you. If you tend to be a little bit more, meek, maybe you have more water in your chart. You like to meditate a lot, and I'm not making fun of that. It's a big part of my life. I even do meditations on my channel. Okay, but if you tend to have a softer, sweeter, sensitive personality, it's time to put a little more chili powder in your stew. You're trying to become more Mars-like, more warrior-like during the next 6 months. So doing activities that stimulate that in you, standing up for yourself, protecting those who can't defend themselves,
And
helping to,
oh,
yeah,
sorry.
speak. Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to start. It's
I
like,
was just going to say, Mars retrograde tends to do that
uh-huh.
anyway. When Mars is retrograde, people who tend to be more passive become
Hmm.
more, I don't want to call it aggressive, but they stand up for themselves, right? They become more martial. And people who tend to be overly martial tend to kind of become more passive. It's one of these transits that tends to level the playing field a little bit. So during that period, September through November, where we have that Mars retrograde, I think we're going to be seeing that just naturally and organically. People won't even have to be necessarily trying to do that. It's just what's going to be brought out of them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like how that balances the energy out. And
Yeah.
of course, people that know each other is like, that's not like you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's acting a little differently. It's like, oh, I like this side of you. Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
sorry, what
yeah,
were you going to say before I interrupted you with that?
uh, I was pretty much done. I was riffing. It's just developing more pressure. Pressure. Yeah, we don't need more pressure. I can tell you that, but more courage and bravery,
Yeah.
and cultivate more of the hero archetype, because we're going to need to be heroes to save ourselves and others through this very tense time. So, and at least in the U.S., where we're from, naturally we kind of free associate there. It's an election year,
Mhm.
and of course we're seeing this, you know, toxicity of the polarity of teams. One team against another, and here they are. It's like, oh, here we are in the realm of fake news. It's like the news is putting out basically on either end their propaganda. you
Mhm.
know and I think that's going to continue to accelerate and ramp up. The energy is going to get more and more explosive leading up to the election. And even when the election happens, it doesn't matter who wins. It's going to be a colorful outcome. you know
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but whatever team loses is not going to like it very much.
No, and they're not going to believe the results, and there's going to be an uproar. And that's regardless of who wins, that absolutely shows up in the astrology. But I think it's kind of obvious, like even
Yeah.
not looking at it from an astrological perspective, that that's going to happen. And
Hmm.
also, kind of going back to the energy of courage, something else that I've been talking about since Saturn moved into Capricorn that I think we also need to develop, and I think that's going to be ramped up with the Mars square to Saturn, is self-responsibility. Like people are not taking responsibility or haven't been taking responsibility for a very long time for the things that they are doing to contribute to the current system or to the problems in their own lives. And I
Hmm.
mean, I'm guilty of that. Everyone's guilty of that in one way or another. And I'm not saying or suggesting that everything that happens to you is your fault. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying where you have control, how are you exercising that control, and what are you doing, and how are you maybe enabling what's happening to continue happening on a personal and a collective level? And where can you show up and take responsibility, take courage, right? Build that courage and take responsibility to show up for yourself and to show up for everyone right now. That's a
Yeah.
big thing that I really think people need to focus on, because if we're not focusing on that in the fall, things are going to, not work out to our advantage.
Yeah, I love what you just said. And that's beautiful and eloquently put. And I think I'll just add a little footnote to that. If we contemplate, as with evolutionary astrology, I do, the predictive stuff is not really my game, even though I know enough to get me into trouble, but in terms of the psycho-spiritual development of that, what you were just talking about is like, yeah, I love that. Responsibility, accountability, developing the warrior energy, the courage, the fierceness to look within and to be accountable for our Gemini, and Sagittarius even, our beliefs, our thoughts. Be accountable for every thought that we have, every thought that animates our head, even our emotions too. Again, we're on this polarity between light and dark here on planet Earth, in this land of, or realm of duality. And there is the high-end thoughts and emotions that stem from positivity, love, connection, peace, all the beautiful stuff. And then there's thoughts and emotions that stem from dark, everything stemming under the umbrella of basically fear when you boil down to it. And then everything under love. It's kind of like two branches, opposite sides of the same coin. And our navigation as we bump back and forth between light and dark, I mean, none of us are impeccable people. We have thoughts of judgment, whether we're judging ourselves or judging other people or feeling guilty or shameful about something we did or angry at somebody for something somebody did or whatever. And of course, anger, in my opinion, okay, people that will disagree with me here, stems from the negative set of emotions. Some people will disagree with that. They'll say, I'm not angry. This is righteous indignation. I'm justified for feeling this anger. I'm standing up for myself. And I get that point of view. I just disagree. There's ways to, because again, that's shadow side Mars in Aries. So courage, bravery, all that stuff, strength, stand up straight, charge into battle, you protect those who you love, without causing harm to anybody else, that's high in Mars. But standing up for yourself, taking responsibility for yourself and those you love, being sovereign, not being defined by other people, freedom. Mars in Aries loves freedom and independence and individuality.
Oh, yeah.
So circling back to what I was saying, I'm kind of going in different directions here. Taking accountability for our dark thoughts and our dark emotions and always strive for the high end. And the more we do that, the more we're working proactively with our Gemini, which is to say our thoughts and perception of reality. And that's how we become accountable for how we interact with the world, because like attracts like. If you're coming from this place of anger, and wanting to defend yourself or attack other people, and we're seeing that in a lot of places all over the world, you're going to feed more of that energy, not only in yourself, and that sucks your energy and your life force away, which is a whole nother subject, but you're also feeding the energy of other people who have like-minded feelings and thoughts. Like attracts like. So you're creating sort of this group, sort of elemental or energy. And it's an entity. It becomes an entity. It's not a being. Okay, we're beings, but it becomes like, has a life of its own, and it grows stronger. So by not feeding into those pools of anger and instead going more towards love and light, we're doing our own small part and being responsible and accountable for our own thoughts, emotions, intentions, desires, and actions, so that we can feed towards the good instead of the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love the way that you just put all of that. And I would love to keep talking forever and ever and ever about this topic because this is so interesting. This is probably one of my favorite interviews I've done in quite some time. And we're touching on some stuff that's really important and really truthful. And also kind of difficult and challenging and scary. And so, something I would love to do to kind of wrap this up, and something that Bryan does on his channel for you guys who are not familiar, is to end this with a meditation to help people through the process of dealing with these transits in the next few months. Is that something that you'd like to do with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Love to.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna mute my my mic here, and you have such a nice, microphone with such clear, crisp sound, so I don't want to interfere. And I'm gonna put myself away, and we're gonna go into like a 10-minute meditation, and then I'll
Yeah.
come back and we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty nice microphone, and it's a blessing and a curse because I just want to give the I guess warning here that I live in downtown Lisbon, and there's motorcycles that go past the street, and sometimes sirens and stuff like this. So, if that happens during the meditation, I'm sorry. Just consider it part of the ambiance. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. And I'm going to duck out and I will see you at the end of this.
Okay. Sounds good. So sit somewhere comfortable, and it's helpful during meditation to have a nice straight spine because that's the main energy channel of the body. And we'll simply just start by focusing on our breath. Nice, slow breaths into the belly. Belly first, and then expand the lungs. And then exhale through your mouth, belly first, and then from the lungs. So always belly first. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Deep, slow, rhythmic breathing. And begin to bring your conscious awareness to your chest center. And see if you can feel your heart. Feel the pulse of life. And try to coordinate your breath with the heartbeat. And try to do 3 beats of the heart per inhale and 3 beats of the heart per exhale. And if you can't feel your heartbeat, that's okay. You can just use a 3 or a 4 count. It's fine. In, out. Now bring your awareness down to both of your feet. Feel like you're in your feet. There's a very grounded feeling there. And I want you to start visualizing the color white, a brilliant, bright, snow white color in and around both of your feet. And then see this white color go higher up into both of the ankles. Continue with the breathing. And if you get distracted, that's okay. Just return your mind to the task at hand. Bring this white color now up into the lower legs, the calves. And feel all the tissues of your lower legs soften and let go. Now up into the knees. Now into both of the thighs. Now into the hips. And see both of your legs in this white color. All colors are in white, and God is in all things. Now bring your attention up to the stomach area and begin to visualize a sky blue color in your belly, your entire stomach area, from the solar plexus all the way to the lower abdomen. You can visualize it as a bright sky blue sun shining in all directions. And the sky blue color gets brighter and brighter as you inhale, and then ripples out into all directions as you exhale. See it grow brighter as you inhale. And now visualize all the sky blue color going throughout your entire body as you exhale. Feel your entire body soften and let go. Now bring your attention up to the chest area and visualize a pink color in and around your chest. Don't focus on the heart, just the entire chest cavity. A light pink color. And feel feelings of joy and self-love and love for others. It goes brighter as you inhale, radiates in all directions as you exhale. Now bring your attention up to your head center and see a brilliant canary yellow color in and around your head. A beautiful yellow sun. With each inhale, it grows brighter and brighter. This is relaxing all of your thoughts and your intentions, stimulates your creativity. Now I want to visualize an interaction you had with somebody recently. Could have been today, could have been yesterday. And maybe it was a situation you felt like you could have navigated a bit better. Or maybe there was some strong emotion exchanged. It can be anything, really. And I want you to analyze that situation with a clear perception of reality, but also with full impunity. Take accountability and responsibility for every thought and emotion that animated your psyche in this circumstance. No praise or blame for your behavior or theirs, just simply seeing it for what it is. What thoughts were you having? What emotions were you having? What did you say? What actions did you take? Now I want you to recreate the same situation in your mind, but change it a little bit. Change your behavior to reflect your best self. How would you have behaved differently? What thoughts could you have had that would have reflected your better self? Or words or emotions? And recreate the same experience in your mind from this more evolved place. And just play with this imagery for a moment. Now return your awareness down to the trunk of your body And now feel like you're in your body fully. And start to visualize a radiant silvery blue white color animating every cell in your entire body, increasing your luminosity. And see yourself shining brightly in every direction. Each time you inhale, it grows brighter and brighter. And as you exhale, you see this light radiate out in all directions. Inhale, exhale. Now start to bring your attention back to your environment, the room that you're in around you. You can start to wiggle your fingers and toes. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back now. That was wonderful. I was doing the meditation as you were saying it, so now I'm like a little too calm. Hopefully,
Wow.
our viewers are a little too calm now, too.
Yeah, I love meditation, and that's why I fuse meditation with the astrology. You know, I make bi-weekly videos every new moon and full moon, and I talk about the energy we're working with, what's the evolutionary intention, and then I like to add a little meditation at the end, which focuses on empowering that I guess you could say set of archetypes that we're working with.
Yeah, well, that was wonderful. And that was definitely a good exercise that I think people can go back to as they're feeling maybe a little heated or things don't go their way throughout the next 6 months with that Mars energy too. So maybe bookmark this video so you can
Put it
go
on your
back to that
favorites
kind of
list.
meditation. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and for the conversation we had. I think that was super interesting. I hope that you'll come back and do it again sometime because I think everyone is going to really love this information. And thank you for the meditation. That was very nice.
Yeah, my pleasure. And maybe you can do a guided meditation on my channel sometime.
Oh, I would love that. I think I told you off camera before that I used to be a yoga teacher. So I miss doing things like that. So that would
Oh,
be
good.
fun. Yeah. Thank
You better be careful or else your audience will start demanding it.
I know. Right? All right. So if you're not already subscribed to Bryan's channel, I definitely recommend doing so. The link is down in the description below. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, do that too. Share this video if you think that other people will be interested in the information or they'll find it helpful. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Bye, Bryan.
Thanks, Heather. It was a pleasure.